Mr. President, I thank the senator from Utah for his courtesy, and the fact of the matter is the USA Freedom Act that was passed overwhelmingly in the House of Representatives, has strong bipartisan support here, is supported by the head of intelligence for the United States. It is supported by our Attorney General. It is supported by our intelligence people. It is a step forward because ultimately we protect the privacy of individuals. Now, I agree with the senator from Maine that we have strong support or strong restrictions in NSA and all on the information. They were not strong enough, of course, to stop Edward Snowden from walking off with all the information that was there. But we had 6 public hearings, the Senate Judiciary Committee in the last Congress on this. The original USA Freedom Act was introduced by Senator Leahy, myself, Congressman Jim Sensenbrenner, and the other body. We all knew that Section 215, the roving wiretap authority, the lone wolf provision would expire on June 1st. That's why we started working to change this. We're also well aware of the Second Circuit Court of Appeals decision that made part of the program illegal. I think what we have done is a bill carefully crafted by both Republicans and Democrats in the House and the Senate. It's why it passed 338 to 88 in the House. And now if we start amending it, we don't know how much longer it's going to take, and we end up with no protections. I think that is not a choice we wanted to take, and I would yield, put my full statement in the record, if I may.
An objection.
I yield to the senator from Utah.
Mr. President, I first want to thank my friend and colleague, the senior senator from Vermont, for his tireless work on this issue. Senator Leahy and I, along with Senator Heinrich and so many others who have participated in this process, have worked together to develop a legislative strategy that is both bicameral and bipartisan. This legislation that we're about to vote on today was passed with an overwhelming supermajority in the House of Representatives, 338 votes to 88 votes. This is a testament to the fact that in so many instances there is more that unites us than divides us in today's political environment. This is an example of the type of win-win situation that we can develop. This bill protects American national security, and it does so in a way that is respectful of the privacy interests and both the letter and the spirit of the Fourth Amendment. The American people understand intuitively that it's none of the government's business who they're calling, when they're calling them, who calls them, how long their calls last. The American people intuitively understand what graduate researchers have confirmed, which is that this type of calling data, even just the data itself, not anything having to do with recorded conversations, just the data, reveals a lot about an individual, about his or her political preferences, religious views, marital status, number of children the person may have, all kinds of interests that are none of the government's business. The way this data is collected, moreover, is inconsistent with the way our government is supposed to operate. Rather than going out and demonstrating some type of connection between the data set requested and a particular investigation, under the current system, the government simply issues orders saying, send us all of your data. Send us all your data on all calls made by all of your customers. We want all of it. If that means 300 million phone numbers, we want all of that, regardless of its connection to any suspected terrorist operation. This is wrong. Our bill would change that. And it would change it quite simply by requiring the government to request information connected to a particular phone number, a phone number that is itself suspected of being involved in some type of terrorist activity. This bill represents a good compromise. This bill represents reason. This bill would protect American national security while also protecting privacy. This bill, in so doing, recognizes that our privacy is not and ought not ever be deemed to be in conflict with our security. Our privacy is, in fact, part of our security. We are unfortunately considering this bill with too little time left. In fact, we're considering this bill after the PATRIOT Act provisions at issue have expired. This is unfortunate, it was unnecessary, and it represents a long-standing bipartisan problem within the Senate. A problem pursuant to which we establish cliffs. We establish these artificially designed deadlines. We've known about this particular deadline for 4 years. For 4 years, Mr. President, we knew that these provisions were going to expire. We should have taken these provisions up far before now. Many of us tried, and we did so unsuccessfully. Senator Leahy and I and others have been working on this legislation for years. We've been ready, willing, eager, and anxious to do so. We haven't been able to do so until very recently. And because of the fact that these provisions have now expired, it's incumbent upon us to move these things forward in all deliberate speed. Whatever the outcome of this vote, Mr. President, and of those votes that will follow later today, whatever the outcome of these votes, the American people deserve better than this. Vital national security programs that touch on our fundamental civil liberties deserve a full, open, honest, and unrushed debate. This should not be subject to cynical government-by-cliff brinksmanship. If members of Congress, particularly Republican members of Congress, ever want to improve their standing among the American people, then we must abandon this habit of political gamesmanship. Finally, Mr. President, it's time for us to pass this bill that has been passed overwhelmingly in the House of Representatives, this bill that carefully balances important interests that the American people care deeply about. I urge my colleagues to support this legislation. Thank you, Mr. President.